Hey everyone, welcome back to Grumpy Old Gamers. Basically, just talking about anything to deal with gaming in general. Once again, I'm joined by Maelstrom. Hey,
Hey, what's going on? And you youngins get off my yard. Uh,
you have a yard?
I don't, yep, kind of.
Really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, that's
Kind of a yard.
I don't have a yard. It's just concrete over here.
All right, well, it's covered in sidewalks, but it's a yard.
Oh, I guess yeah.
Yeah,
So it's a yard of sidewalks, basically.
right. You don't
Uh,
even have a patch of grass.
okay, okay, yeah, that makes sense then. So your sidewalk is a yard wide.
Kind of.
Okay. All right. So I was thinking, like, I one thing that you and I have probably been playing for 30-ish years, goodness knows how long, maybe even longer in your case, is basically D&D, right?
Correct.
And yeah, and one thing that's really come up is feats, because like I remember back in, I think it was 3.5 edition, second edition, or even
Third
third and a half,
edition.
third edition, third and a half edition, whichever one it was. I mean, feats was just something that you could automatically take as a player, you know. And in fifth edition, it's a bit different. They've actually I'm here on D&D Beyond right now, and under the game rules, I mean, if we go over to feats, it's actually, especially like if you go to the player's guide or even the dungeon master's guide, feats are now an optional thing, right? So it's
Right.
just something that a DM can allow players to use. Like instead of the ability score improvement, you could go for a feat.
Right.
And mind you, a lot of these feats give an ability score improvement as well. So I guess I just wanted to know, I think a lot of DMs, especially people who DMs were just starting with fifth edition, who I mean, recently D&D is very popular. We've got all these YouTube channels now as well, streaming D&D and stuff like that. We've got all these Hollywood stars playing D&D. But I think it's caused a surge in young new dungeon masters, which is fantastic. But I think that maybe they might be confused. Like, should I allow feats or shouldn't I allow feats?
Well, back in the day, um, it was an option to get rid of them.
Mm,
Now it's an option to use them. I would say that before they use feats, try running a sample game without them.
mm-hmm.
And if the players ask, about maybe adding some more flavor, go to feats. Feats are, to me, something that adds more depth to your character. Something because I'm big into, role play. In the past, my brothers and I, when we would play, we would spend an entire session not even getting into combat, and we would just role play. And some of those feats that we have right now are very role play uh, soluble, we'll say.
Mm.
And and for example, actor, it gives you bonuses to mimicking someone else's voice. It gives you bonuses to performance. It gives you bonuses to deception. And I think it gives you a bonus to what, charisma? I think, I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
plus one charisma. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I, to me, I I've become so accustomed to using feats that it just it makes my character bland without them. How about you?
I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword. On one hand, yeah, I would say that if you are just starting off, you're a fledgling DM, shall we say? You're just getting started, managing all the spells and attacks and everything else, and then still factoring in that various players might have feats, could be a bit overwhelming. But once you're comfortable with it, then like you say, like if let's say you've got two fighters or three fighters in your party, you know, they might already be a bit different. Like maybe one guy just prefers using a short sword, the other guy is like an archer, for example, and the other guy is just a brawly tank. But the feats can add more flavor. They can enhance that character, that attribute that they're going for, that character style. But I think you have to be really careful because in the hands of a skilled player, it's just the key to min maxing. When you just go OP as hell, right? So if you think about it, something like alert, you get +5 initiative, you can't be surprised, and hidden attackers gain no advantage to attacking you. That just combine that with, for example, a monk or a rogue, that's just unfair at that point. It's like, yeah, might as well you go first every turn, basically. You know?
Right, or even someone that specializes in war magic, they get the intelligence bonus to initiative as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah, exactly.
then or like you were saying with a rogue, if they add skulker, uh, have fun finding them after they hit you.
hmm There are some things I think are really cool, like the racial ones that we have, right? Like, for example, wood elf magic, right? So if you are a wood elf, you can gain some basic druid stuff, which kind of makes sense. You think about it. If you think of forest elves in that sense, you think, yeah, they're all kind of a bit druidic, aren't they? What was the other one that we had here? There are a lot of other racial ones, like Svirfneblin magic as well, right? So because you got that bloodline, you inherit the abilities or the magic of your race, right? Or like Orcish Fury, something like, what else do we have here, right? I think it was Infernal Constitution or something, maybe. Um,
Right.
Fey
Infernal
teleportation,
Yep, Infernal Constitution, Fey Teleportation,
dwarven fortitude,
Squat Nimbleness.
drow high magic.
No, exactly.
That's
And
fine.
right, well, if it's part of your race, for example, the Drow, uh, they they're basically raised on the weave and magic uh, and divine magic and all of that, and of course, over the years, it's going to become part of them.
Yeah, I agree. And I think for me, I would say that we kind of get the ability score improvements at fourth level, so you can pick a feat then, and then we get another one at eighth level. And I would say, for me personally, as a DM, not to allow it at fourth level. I would still say that at fourth level, you're not seasoned enough. You haven't adventured enough really to unlock that inner magic. I would say wait until at least the eighth level to allow players to potentially choose a feat, but I would put a lot of restrictions around it, right? Because it'd be way too easy to for a newbie DM, right? A new DM to just get bowled over by a player who then wants to do things like use Charger, for example, right? Or to give himself Dragon Fear, but okay, he doesn't. He's not really draconic, right? So if he wants to
Right.
get Charger, which allows you to make a melee attack or shove after the dash action, then you have to see up to this point how often did he actually dash? How often did he
Right.
actually really rush into melee combat? Because if he didn't, right, then why on earth should this character have Charger if none of the actions up to that point have led to that feat?
Right. For example, a caster, you know, um, for them to get ritual magic, I would say that they have to either be an arcanist, or if you're an arcanist, be associated with a druid or a cleric before you can get ritual magic. And if you're a cleric, if you want to have wizard ritual magic,
Mm-hmm.
you should be associated with a sorcerer or a warlock
Yeah,
or a
you
wizard.
need to have one of them on your team at least. That you're kind of like looking over and learning, or maybe just like if you're by being around the sorcerers, kind of unlocked some of the magic in your bloodline or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, like if I think
That's,
about it,
that's
things
what
like, I mean, I've known some young DMs, or okay, I think guess young is really not right, but some new DMs, shall we say, where the moment that the player hit fourth level, he says, okay, I want to get Dungeon Delver. And the DM was like,
right.
yeah, sure, because the player was thinking, by giving myself the Dungeon Delver feat, I can prepare my character for an upcoming dungeon. But I would say that's the exact wrong way to do it. You need to have had experience in dungeons,
Right.
been caught in traps to learn Dungeon Delver.
Right. For example, um, if you've been in several dungeons, especially like if you are doing that whole Tomb Raider thing, Dungeon
Mm-hmm.
Delver is perfect
Oh, yeah.
for you.
Yeah,
But if
absolutely.
you've been, but if you've been in the wilderness for the last 8 levels,
Hmm.
and now all of a sudden you want Dungeon Delver. Uh, I'm I'm no, unless you're running across a lot of traps in the wilderness. But even then, that's not a dungeon. That should be covered by something else.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, like, why should a character get the inspiring leader feat if they have a charisma of, of like a normal charisma, and so far in your entire campaign they were basically wallpaper. They were just hanging out at the back and flinging long range spells, not really rallying your team or inspiring them in any way. You know.
Right. Or, yeah, exactly. If they're not rallying or inspiring, um, and that just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even something like tough, right? Which is a fantastic feat, mind you. +2 hit points per character level. You're basically giving yourself like +4 Constitution in terms of hit points, right? Because you're giving
Right.
yourself +2 per level. It's an incredibly powerful skill, especially for lower hit point melee units, right? Think of monks or rogues, for example. You give them tough. You can say like, yeah, sure, but have you been beaten up often enough? How often have you been near death? What is it that made your character's
Right.
body tougher? You cannot just simply say, "Oh, I want to be tough. I'm going to give myself this." Oh, look, ha ha ha! 20 extra hit points.
Right. Have you been right? Have you been doing calisthenics every day? You know,
Exactly.
are you lifting weights?
Yeah.
Are you
Or,
hanging out with the monk and letting him beat on you for a few minutes a day to toughen your skin up?
exactly. Or like Tower of Iron Will, which in third edition, third and a half edition was psionics was an actual separate class in that sense, right? And so now it's just kind of warlocks is kind of bundled in there. But if you've not been attacked by a warlock, by a psychic or psionic attack, why should you be allowed to have Tower of Iron Will?
I don't see why. Unless because there's a lot of playtest material that's incorporating the old psionics,
Yeah.
but it's not going to be a separate class. It's just going to be not a background, but a specialization of some sort.
Yeah, for the warlocks, I think it is.
Well, actually, there's the warlocks, the sorcerers, the wizards. They have psionics for all classes, but the only ones that are really appealing are the warlock, the wizard, the sorcerer. But I don't, I don't see a reason for that unless you're, in the Underdark running across a lot of mind flayers, um, or your brain is under attack for some reason. Uh, I,
Yeah.
I don't, I don't understand it. And the bottom line is there has to be a reason, like skilled. Um, the skills that you want. Have you been fumbling around with them? Um, that's just,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's just a very fine balancing act, because I think if you are a new dungeon master and you just let your players run rampant with feats that make no sense, assuming you allow feats, right? Which I'm in favor
Correct.
of with limits, right? But if you just allow them to run rampant, they're gonna have feats and abilities that make no sense for their past experience. That might even
Hmm.
give them new skills that they've not earned,
Right.
and you just lose control of it. Your players will think, oh, okay, I can walk all over this DM. He or she's just gonna let everything go, whatever works. And I think
Correct.
that's wrong. And as a DM, you need to be in control. Your players need to know that Deus ex machina, which is divine intervention to save your character, as well as having an itchy trigger finger over the smite button. Both of that is the DM.
Right. Right. Now, that's not to say it is not supposed to be me DM, you not, unga bunga, me in charge, but you're running the game. The game is not supposed to run you. And I
Exactly.
am a character, as a character, as an experienced character. If I have a game master, I'll test them.
Oh
In
yeah.
particular, like with our current brand new game master who's doing a phenomenal job, by the way. The brand new one, I promised him that I would, dial it way, 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 way down because normally I'll test.
Oh yeah,
I'll push and poke, and I mean, you do it, I do it,
yeah,
because I want to see if he's going to say no. I want him. I want a game master that's not afraid to tell me no. And if a brand new game master says, "Okay, pick whatever feats you want," they're going to run all over you.
yeah. I think the worst thing, and I know what you're talking about, and and we've had some discussions around this as well, and you know, one thing that I think he does still need to learn is how to say no, because every time we say, like, we start pushing buttons, we say, oh hey, can we maybe get this item? Hey, what if we get lucky enough to find this item? His answer tends to be, oh, we'll see what happens. And I think that's just he could be a bit firmer, and I think that's what makes sense. And even when we were discussing, like I remember you and I were when we hit level 8, and we are all like discussing the feats. He didn't
Right,
really set too many limits around. It was actually us who stepped up and said, "Hang on, let's make sure that the feats actually make sense." So
right,
again, this is something, we're not the abusive players. We push where we
right,
won't abuse. Instead, we might try to guide him to being a better dungeon master. But at the same
right,
time, there are players out there that'll be just total assholes, and
right,
they
and
will abuse the DM.
right. They will min max to the point where by the time they're fourth level, they're decimating Death Knights and dragons and everything else because the game master won't say no. You can't have that staff of power.
Yeah, or he won't be evil or sadistic enough to square them off against the enemy that they're weakest against.
Right. Or, he's going to say, like, for example, with the feats, that's what we've been talking about. There are some feat combinations that you really shouldn't have by the time you're fourth level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you're, um, even if you're a human, because a human gets that bonus feat, the variant human.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's what I like about fifth edition is they've made it far more appealing to play a human now
Oh
because
yeah,
in past incarnations you didn't see a whole lot of humans.
correct. And I think then that's also why variant human is optional, because they get the feats. They get
Right,
that extra feat, and feats them. I mean, that's their strength. That's the strength of the
right,
variant human. You get that feat, but feats themselves are optional. You
right.
know,
And that's why an experienced game or master can handle that, but a brand new one, I wouldn't recommend allowing that variant human because just the name alone says this is optional. You
yeah,
might not, and the feat, it's built in. This is an optional race
yeah. That's
because,
kind of when as a DM you've gone up in your own level as well.
right. Or if you're a brand new game master and you want to include the variant human, I would say, okay, you are restricted to certain feats
Yeah,
like Magic Initiate, or another one you could be. I am a huge fan of Skilled. That's always my favorite feat.
yep,
You get 3 skills or tools of your choice,
yeah.
and or Linguist. That would be another one I would allow at first level.
And it depends on the class as well, right? Like if he's gonna be, say, a human monk, you might allow grappler because that's just martial arts.
Right,
You know,
right.
um, you might allow maybe
Tavern Brawler.
lucky. I mean, some people are just born with natural luck, right? So you might allow lucky, for example, because it's not really something
Right,
where you can say, oh, you've spent 5 years, 10 years adventuring, and you're a grizzled warrior. Now all of a sudden you're lucky.
right. Or athlete,
Yeah, that's
because
another good one.
maybe you spent a lot of time in like a physical activity when you were smaller, but not charger.
Correct. Now, mind
That's
you,
that's not something they teach a child.
exactly, exactly. Now, mind you, for any one of these things, I would push that player to have a damn good background story. I want to
Right,
know, why is this child, this new player, a
right,
prodigy, right? Why does he get observant, for example? What's
right,
the background there? And he better role play it as well. You know, you can't just say, "Oh well, I was really observant before I became an adventurer, but now I'm just happy-go-lucky."
Right. Or, for example, with skilled, maybe his background is he was a cloistered scholar. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
He's a book nerd, and you send him out into the wilderness, and all of a sudden he wants to be a Boy Scout. No, you
Exactly.
know, you're gonna role play. You're walking through the woods, and as the game master, I'd say, um, you're a human walking in the woods at night. Roll at disadvantage every so often to see if you trip,
Yeah,
thereby alerting the local residents of your uh, presence, we'll say.
exactly, exactly. Or let's say for example, elven accuracy, right?
Right.
Many people might especially like a young DM or fresh DM might think, oh, okay, I'm just okay. My character, one of my players is an elven rogue. Yeah, sure, I can let him have elven accuracy early on. No, because if you think of something like elven accuracy, you're thinking of Legolas, right? I mean, even in Lord of the Rings, there were like 100, 200, several hundred elves, and not all of them were as accurate as Legolas. It's because he is a grizzled combat veteran. He's actually been doing this for like 100, 200 plus years. So he's earned that accuracy through years of practice, right? And then you're gonna get that
Correct.
crafty player who's going to say, okay, if I can be an elven rogue and I get myself elven accuracy and I get advantage on an attack, I get my sneak attack, but elven accuracy allows me to re-roll one of the dice as well.
Right.
So
Right.
that's an example of min maxing when you're going like, okay, given these circumstances, I'm going to maximize my chances to be brutal. And a fourth level character, a fourth level player, even a variant human at first level should not be
Right.
that OP.
Right. Unless like the first one they take, um, I would say sharpshooter. That's a fourth level skill, or feat rather. That's a good fourth level feat. Um, but elven accuracy, I would say they'd have to have a very, very, very good backstory. Like they were born, and when they were 3 years old, mom and dad shoved a small bow in their hands and said, "All right, practice 8 hours a day." You know, um,
Actually, I mean, even to me, I would still say something like sharpshooter would have to be at 8th level because it is so versatile. It is so powerful. I mean, long range attacks don't impose disadvantage.
right,
That's insanely powerful. Your ranged weapon attacks ignore half cover and three quarters cover. No,
right,
this is like legendary archer. This is Robin Hood. This is at least 8th level. To
right,
me, at least,
and
that's how I would interpret.
well, it also depends on how much they've been adventuring, how much they've used their bow. If they've been using, if it's like you're an elven character, and every time you get into combat, you don't use melee weapons. You use your bow. You use your bow. You use your bow, and that's it. Maybe I could see justifying it.
Then, if you're going to allow feats at 4th level, I would then rather say that elven accuracy should be
Yep,
allowed at
that's
4th level.
right. That was going to be my point.
Yeah,
Elven accuracy, correct. Um,
but sharpshooter is more powerful than elven accuracy.
right. Well, so is spell sniper.
Oh yeah,
It's
yeah,
that's another one that avoids cover. But most game masters, even young ones, will tell you if you can see it, you can hit it. There's no penalties.
yeah.
But
Correct.
for myself, it depends on how much cover. If you're in a dense jungle and you can see only like their eyeball, you're,
Yeah.
you're going to be at a disadvantage of some kind.
Well, for me, the most dangerous thing about spell sniper is just that it doubles the range of your spells.
Right.
I mean, even magic missiles are now double in range. Your fireball, you can now cast it, at twice the range before the enemy spellcaster can get a shot off on you. Your
Right.
lightning bolt doubles its range.
Right. Like Eldritch Blast for a warlock, if they pick certain things, and let's say they dual class into sorcerer, and that they're fourth level, and then they take that. Some of their spells have like a 1,200-meter range. I'm like, Eldritch Blast is what I'm talking about mainly.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know about you, but I could barely see at 300 meters, let alone 1,200.
Yeah, I mean, 300 meters is 1,000 yards. I mean,
Right, that's a football thing.
yeah, it's like, all right, that's pretty far. I mean, even what a football pitch is, 90 yards, 100 yards.
Right. I mean, I can barely see that far away. Now, if we're talking 30 feet away, maybe
Yeah, yeah,
triple my feet.
exactly. You can find your shoes.
Right.
But yeah,
Right, because I
yeah,
can't find my shoes.
right. And I would say, look, it's if you are a new DM and you really want to introduce feats, that's fine. But I would say that really read through the feats, understand what you will and will not allow, and then just simply set the rules straight up with your players during character creation. Don't even give them the option of feats if you don't want to have them want them to have feats early. Maybe with an exception of variant humans, if you allow variant humans in the game, right? But then for me,
Right.
like with my campaign right now with this group of kids, I made it very clear to them: if you want a feat, you can only get it at 8th level, and only if your character has done something to deserve that feat. And they get it, and they appreciate it, and so that's
Right.
that's fine, because I think at 4th level, the highest value you can get is to actually improve those ability scores that maybe the die rolls weren't so friendly to you when you created your character.
Right.
Use those 2 points where it
Right.
matters. Then at 8th
Right.
level, you're achieving, because I mean, an 8th level character in D&D is a quasi legendary character. You
Well,
have
they're
fame.
rare.
Yeah.
They're
you know
rare. Like I was taught that even a first level character is like 1 in 10,000 people was brave enough to venture forth and learn these specialized traits,
exactly.
you know. And and I was also taught that there might be less than a handful of 20th level players on the entire planet. So
Yeah.
you should, by the time you're 8th level, have rolled with the punches long enough to earn that feat. But during those 8 levels, as you said, what were you doing? Does the feat make sense?
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, 20th level, like you say, I mean, these are basically demigods. If you're 20th level, yeah, you're not afraid of anything except other 20th level players and maybe the occasional deity coming your way. At 8th level, you're like a great general. You're like Napoleon Bonaparte. You're the fame is spreading. People start recognizing you or hating you in advance, depending on what side you're playing in that sense. And you already start attracting followers and apprentices. And I think a lot of players don't appreciate that. They just think it's a race through to at least 12th or 16th level before things get difficult. But no, it's not. Even at 8th level, it's so rare that Robin Hood might have been 8th or 9th level, and he maybe had sharpshooter. That's what to think of. Robin Hood, the mythical Robin Hood, Robin of Locksley, was not a 20th level archer. In D&D terms, he was probably 8th to 10th level.
Right. And he started out as a knight.
Yeah. So he was basically
He,
just a fighter, and then he picked up archery.
right, exactly. And he practiced day in, day out. He found people in the woods. So that would be like a knight, like a paladin, deciding he wants to learn archery and going out into the woods, finding a ranger and learning.
And
You know,
multi-classing probably, but yeah.
pretty much that's, to me, that's what the Robin Hood thing was.
Yeah.
But even then, if you look at the story, the actual story, and then you compare it to the legend, which kind of meet up together, the archery makes sense. Him being a expert marksman makes sense because they were outnumbered. They had to hit, run, hide.
Yeah.
Just like the Revolutionary War, they had to hit, run, hide because if they were up against experienced soldiers standing in a straight line, they're going to get their butts kicked, and that's basically what the knight was. He understood that they were outnumbered, but he's not. I would consider Robin of Locksley maybe like a 6th level character, because whereas people have deified him. No,
Potentially, potentially, yeah. I mean, I would still put him a bit higher, maybe 8th level, just based on his skills, you know. But yeah, but again, that's I think something a lot of players don't appreciate, right? They think, oh, 5th level is still nothing. Like, no, 5th level is a grizzled combat veteran. You know, you've been through a war or two. That's a 5th level character. I mean, you know, at 5th level, as a spellcaster, you're flinging fireballs already. That's a weapon of mass destruction.
exactly. And if you're a sorcerer and you have, yeah, if quickened twin spell and you have enough sorcery points to do it twice, now you're a glass cannon. You've used up all your spells for the day,
Yeah,
but you're a glass cannon.
yeah, exactly. So yeah. Anyways, look, that's just my thing. I mean, for me, feats are a great thing. If you are a new DM, don't use them yet. Learn them
Right,
first. Learn the
right.
personalities of your players, and then introduce them in a trickle. Don't let your players run rampant with feats. They will walk all over you.
Oh, they will. And like you and I do, we won't walk all over them once they realize, but we'll test the waters, find out who we're dealing with, and then if it's somebody we like, we'll go ahead and mentor them, kind of like uh, you know ask key questions and help them to come to these realizations themselves, which is what I try to do.
Yeah,
But luckily I have dealt my last couple of brand new game masters. They at least became familiar with the rules, and they do allow feats as a brand new game master, but they have the wisdom to say, okay, why do they have this feat? And if they can't justify it, no.
exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyways, look. So I think that's we'll probably start wrapping it up at this point. So
Right.
yeah. Look, if you guys are out there. If you have any questions, any feedback, violent reactions, comments, what do you guys think about feats? Why don't you just post a comment below, ask a question, or if there's some other thing you'd like us to ramble on about, and maybe you want to join in, hey, like and subscribe.
Right. I can ramble. Like, subscribe, hit that bell so you get notifications.
Indeed. All right, and thank you, Maelstrom. I'll see you on whichever game we decide to play together. Maybe tomorrow, the after tomorrow.
Tomorrow, day after tomorrow, I don't care.
All righty.
So whenever, I'm up all day, every day. Have a good one.
All right, you too. All right, bye bye.
Bye.